20% of the world's oil supply passes through a waterway that is 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. The United States has 2 aircraft carrier strike groups in the region, representing more concentrated naval firepower than most countries possess entirely. Iran's conventional navy has been largely destroyed by U.S. and Israeli strikes since February 28th. The Strait of Hormuz is still closed. The weapon doing it is not a warship. It is not a ballistic missile fired from a hardened silo. In many cases, it is a small boat with an explosive charge, an autonomous drone vessel built for less than the cost of a car, programmed to navigate a shipping lane and detonate against the hull of whatever vessel it finds. This video explains how Iran is blocking one of the world's most critical waterways without a functional navy, what it is using, why the U.S. military has no simple answer to it, and what it reveals about where naval warfare is going. To understand the stakes, you need to understand what the Strait of Hormuz actually is, and why its closure sends immediate economic shockwaves across the entire globe. The strait is the only sea passage from the Persian Gulf to the open ocean. Every barrel of oil exported from Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Iraq, and Iran itself must pass through this channel. On a normal day, approximately 17 to 20 million barrels of oil transit the strait, roughly 1/5 of all oil traded globally. There is no alternative route. Pipelines exist, but cannot absorb anywhere near this volume, and routing tankers around the Arabian Peninsula adds weeks and enormous cost to every delivery. When the strait closes, the effects are not theoretical. Oil prices rise immediately. Shipping insurance rates for the region spike to levels that make some voyages uneconomical. Nations with limited strategic reserves, particularly in Asia and Europe, begin rationing and contingency planning. The economic pain is distributed globally within days, not weeks. This is Iran's leverage, not its military power, which has been significantly degraded. Its geography and the outsized economic consequence that controlling this specific piece of water produces. 3 systems are making the Strait of Hormuz dangerous enough to effectively close commercial shipping, and each one presents a different type of problem for the forces trying to reopen it. The first is sea mines. Iran has seeded portions of the strait with naval mines, underwater explosive devices that detonate on contact or proximity to a vessel's hull. Modern naval mines are sophisticated. Some are moored at specific depths to target different vessel types. Some use acoustic sensors to identify ship signatures before arming. Clearing a minefield requires slow, methodical minesweeping operations that take days or weeks per cleared lane. The vessels doing the sweeping must operate slowly in the threat zone, and they are themselves vulnerable to attack while working. The U.S. Navy's minesweeping capacity, the dedicated ships and systems for this mission, has been a documented capability gap for over 2 decades. It was not a priority during the years of counterterrorism operations in landlocked Afghanistan and Iraq. The second system is explosive drone boats, what Iranian forces call suicide skiffs. These are small, fast surface vessels loaded with explosives, controlled either remotely or programmed with waypoints to autonomously navigate toward a target and detonate. Iran has disguised some of these as fishing vessels, a deliberate tactic that exploits the ambiguity of a waterway that has genuine commercial and fishing traffic. In a strait full of legitimate small boats, distinguishing an armed drone vessel from a fishing boat at range requires close inspection, which is itself a dangerous operation under fire. The third system is shore-based anti-ship missiles. Iran's southern coastline along the strait is equipped with mobile anti-ship missile launchers, systems that can fire and then relocate before a counterstrike arrives. These missiles have ranges that can cover the entire width of the strait. Any surface vessel attempting to transit or to conduct minesweeping operations falls within their engagement envelope. These launchers are small, mobile, and easily concealed in terrain. Eliminating them comprehensively from the air requires persistent surveillance and rapid strike capability. That capability must be sustained across an entire coastline, not achieved with a single strike package. The intuitive response to a blocked strait is to send warships to clear it. The U.S. has 2 carrier strike groups in the region. The question is why they have not solved the problem. Aircraft carriers, the centerpiece of U.S. naval power projection, are optimized for open ocean operations. They require sea room to maneuver, to generate the wind speed needed for aircraft launches, and to maintain a safe distance from threats. Operating a carrier inside a 21-mile-wide channel that is mined, covered by shore-based missiles, and patrolled by explosive drone boats is not the mission the carrier was designed for. The carrier itself becomes vulnerable in that environment in ways it is not in open water. The ships designed for this environment, minesweepers, coastal patrol vessels, and amphibious assault ships, are smaller, slower, and far less capable of defending themselves against the combination of threats Iran has deployed. They require protection from the carrier's air wing to operate, which means the carrier needs to stay close enough to provide that coverage, and that puts it closer to the threat environment it is trying to avoid. It is a tactical problem with no clean solution. Every answer involves trade-offs between effectiveness and exposure that military planners have not yet resolved in this conflict. The deeper issue is that the U.S. military spent the post-Cold War era optimizing for power projection, striking targets deep inside adversary territory with precision weapons from safe standoff ranges. The unglamorous, dangerous, slow work of clearing a mined narrow waterway was not the mission that got investment, doctrine development, or procurement priority. That gap is now a strategic liability. There is a financial dimension to this problem that makes it structurally similar to the air defense cost asymmetry we covered in our Patriot video. A naval mine costs a few $1,000s to produce and deploy. It can damage or sink a vessel worth hundreds of millions. An explosive drone boat costs perhaps $10,000 to $20,000. It can disable a commercial tanker worth far more and trigger insurance costs, route changes, and shipping disruptions worth orders of magnitude more still. The U.S. response to each of these threats, including minesweepers, close-in weapon systems, patrol vessels, and surveillance aircraft, costs vastly more to deploy and sustain than the threats they are countering cost to produce. Iran does not need to win the naval engagement. It needs to make the strait expensive and dangerous enough that commercial shipping companies, which operate on thin margins and answer to insurance actuaries, not military commanders, choose to route around it rather than transit it. A commercial shipping company does not wait for the U.S. Navy to declare the strait safe. It waits for its insurer to lower the premiums. And insurance actuaries assess risk differently than admirals do. Several approaches are being considered or implemented to eventually reopen the strait. France has proposed a multinational naval escort mission, with warships from multiple nations accompanying commercial vessels through the strait once the most intense phase of the conflict ends. This is a protective measure, not a clearing operation. It manages the risk rather than eliminating it, and it requires a sustained naval presence from multiple nations over an extended period. The United States has considered special operations options, deploying forces to directly eliminate shore-based missile launchers and drone boat staging areas along Iran's southern coastline. This is higher risk, more decisive if successful, and it represents a significant escalation if things go wrong inside Iranian territory. A Bahrain-backed United Nations Security Council resolution would authorize member states to use all necessary means to protect shipping in and around the strait. But authorization is not capability. Having permission to clear the strait and having the forces positioned and equipped to do it are two different things. The most decisive solution is also the most difficult. A ground operation along Iran's southern coastline, clearing the launch infrastructure that makes the strait dangerous, Without that, every other approach is management rather than resolution. The strait will reopen eventually. Conflicts end, negotiations happen, economic pressure produces political outcomes. But the lesson of this closure will outlast this conflict. Iran has demonstrated that a country without a functional navy can close one of the world's most critical waterways, using technology that costs almost nothing, and that the most powerful naval force in history has no quick answer to it. That lesson is being studied right now in Beijing, Moscow, and Pyongyang, and it will shape how the next conflict begins. Subscribe for weekly breakdowns of what is actually happening in modern warfare. New video every week.